And welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard D. the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good evening.
It is Monday, November 21st, 2022. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. We post videos. Latest video is a review of Asterigos Curse of the Stars. If you go to our Patreon, what would that be called? I guess just our Patreon page. Yeah. Patreon.com/the Gaming Discourse. Or you can support us. You can get early access to videos, access to our Discord server, lots of fun stuff. A few people just scrolled across the screen because you can get your name in the credits for videos and podcasts. Lots there. A few things in the works for the channel coming in the next few weeks, but no reviews or anything like that. And we got a lot of work to do. But we do have news. We have games. All I've been playing is... Yeah, Ragnarok. I was going to think, have I played another video game that's not Ragnarok? And I don't think I have. So all I've been playing is Ragnarok, and now that I've really gotten my teeth, like I've gotten the chance to sink my teeth into the game, I have some more thoughts. Connor, have you tried, are you just in Victoria 3 land still?
I haven't played anything but Pokemon Scarlet the past couple days.
Okay. So why don't we, Richard? Or
God of War.
Just got to work, because Connor, why don't you go ahead and tackle the new Pokemon's game?
So I've lucked out with it because every reported bug and glitch in the game, I have seen zero of it.
Nice.
Which is unheard of for me.
Yeah, you're usually the guy that gets like the
everything. It's like, right. You have like a very slim chance of this happening, and it happens 80 times a second for me.
Yeah, right.
But so far, I'm really liking it. I like the Spanish aesthetic of the game. Lovely architecture.
Is it set in Spain, or
it's set in quote unquote Spain?
Okay, interesting.
It's Pokemon Fantasy Spain.
Okay.
Some of the characters are very interesting. It takes place at an academy, so you're a student at an academy. The initial person you meet, who's usually the rival, is now a friend of yours. You meet them, and they instantly become friends with you. And they don't do the like the classic Pokemon Red, Blue, where they take the opposite of your starter type. So if you choose fire, they choose water. If you choose, so on and so forth. They choose what's weak to yours. So I went with Fuecoco, the quote unquote rival character. Went with Brigatito,
the cat,
the
grass
weed
cat.
Yeah, grass cat.
Weed cat. Yeah, that's good. Cat. I like that. Okay.
And they introduce a second friend/rival like 20 minutes in, so I don't know if it's gonna be like later on rivalry between them two, and then I'm like picking sides or something. But we'll find out. The evil, behind the scenes evil team is Team Star, and they have a really ostentatious entrance. They draw a star with their hands.
Okay.
And it's just over the top, and they wear have you ever seen pictures of the bassist Bootsy Collins wearing those big star sunglasses?
I don't think so.
Well, they all have these big star sunglasses on it. It's very reminiscent of Bootsy Collins.
You'll definitely probably know him if you've seen him.
Yeah, maybe.
But all in all, fun. Some of the issues that were in Pokemon Legends Arceus with the render distance causing animations to drop to where it's like you'll have people walking at 5 frames when they're like a few hundred feet in front of you, and as you get closer, they start picking up frames. People complain about that, but it is a product of the engine isn't really designed for this. Every other Pokemon game has been isometric, so that's where they've put a lot of their resources.
That's a good point to make, yeah.
So instead of, doing a very far rendering for draw distance, stuff gets started to load in off screen, and as you move towards it, it develops more. I think that's just one of the issues that people are complaining about with some of the graphics. I have seen other graphical issues going on, but I haven't run into any of those, so I can't say how game breaking there are. But I haven't seen any game breaking bugs being reported anywhere. So hopefully all this stuff gets patched out pretty quickly.
I don't think any game-breaking ones I've heard of, but it's just a lot of stuff that makes people frustrated. And like a multi-billion-dollar company shouldn't release a thing in this state, which is true for everything. But it could also be one of those. For me, I can see all of these videos and I can see all these examples, but I still have that like, I got to play it myself and see. You know, I did that with Unity, Assassin's Creed Unity. And thankfully, I only got like every now and again, someone was halfway through the floor, and I'm like, ha, you know, it's just a funny thing to me. It's not like really anything crazy, but no, it's on my feeds and all of my social sites. It's definitely. I don't want to say people think it's the end of the world, but people are really angry and wanting Game Freak to try harder.
Well, I guess I'll say if they are going to be continuing with this style where it's like more open world, where it's over the shoulder camera, they should really work on their engine to support that more.
Yeah. I'm not super duper familiar with the Pokemon franchise, but this is like a flagship title, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, when we're talking about Pokemon, like a Pokemon IP, when it comes to video games and stuff, this is like a flagship title. So, like, I wouldn't bemoan anybody who thinks there should be some more polishing.
Yeah, absolutely. When every other series on Nintendo is A+ astounding, you know. I do think I have that stubborn viewpoint where I think that they don't care because Pokemon is designed for children. Yeah, it's designed for children first and foremost. Everyone enjoys it, obviously, like, you know, and it's great that everybody enjoys it, but I think that the kids who are like maybe 14 and younger aren't really going to care. Like they're gonna buy it. That's why it makes so much money. It's not.
They're gonna focus on the Pokemon rather than the game.
It's also the adults, you know, because once again, I made that comparison of Nintendo adults and Disney adults. Like Disney makes so much money because it's, you know, it's not just kids buying it; it's adults buying it for the kids and adults buying it for themselves.
Yeah,
but Nintendo adults really, they're hardcore as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a terrifying demographic to grapple to do anything to. Nintendo adults. Connor, you look like you're
just going back real quick to Pokemon Legends Arceus, there was a lot of people had a lot of issues with the graphical fidelity of the game. In that one, there are noticeable improvements between the two. So something has been done in the development cycle to make the game just look better in general. There's less like stuttering with some of the like grass and tree animations where they're swaying back and forth in the breeze. A lot less of that. But yeah, very fun. I like the open-ended nature of now it's not just go to the different gyms, get badges. There's 3 different routes you could take to complete the game. There's,
cool.
There's collecting these
Pokedex.
Well, there's not just the Pokedex. There's the gyms. There's defeating Team Star, and then finding these Titanic Pokemon. Okay.
I assume are legendary, or so to speak.
Legendary in the sense of they're more grandiose than Pokemon, but the one I ran into so far was just one of the normal Pokemon, just upscaled.
Okay.
Just a gargantuan version of it.
Okay.
Okay. So let's dig into God of War.
Sure, a little bit.
I've gotten much farther.
I've not gotten too much farther.
Too much farther? Okay, I'm probably still farther than you then.
Oh, yeah.
It continues to be excellent. And we were talking about Game of the Year before. I used to think reward awards were like important, not just because important discussion pieces, but with the way that they shake out with so many different freaking categories, I don't know. Now I think I've kind of flipped on that, and I just don't care about awards anymore. But I do think legitimately, like, if someone's really trying to give what the best game is this year, I think it's going to come down to preference. If you're somebody who just loves to get your ass kicked 24/7, Elden Ring is going to be your favorite game of the year. If you're somebody who just prefers God of War, because I don't think you could argue either of them is somehow objectively better than the other. But I'm definitely preferring Ragnarok because that's more in line with my tastes. But Ragnarok continues to impress. I've gotten to the combat a little bit more. The combat, the weapons sort of mirror each other in a sense.
Right.
They both have like they both have similar move sets that do different things. And then the more you use those, I don't know if you've seen this, but the more you use a specific move for a specific weapon, you can add a perk to that move that alters it somehow. I don't know if you've seen this. So like there's a move I have with the axe where you dodge, or Kratos dodges backwards and he tosses the axe and it spins for a second. And hits an enemy or whatever and comes back after like 2 seconds or whatever. If you do that enough, you unlock the ability to give that move a chance at like buffing Kratos or something.
Okay.
So that, or it does, when it hits, it does more frost damage. That move does more frost damage or whatever, something like that. So the more you use all of their Kratos' different moves, you can sort of change them to give them little tiny perks. And then, of course, that means, different moves have different selections of perks. But what that means is you can have a bunch of move sets or a bunch of moves that have a bunch of perks tied to them where you can stack a whole bunch of like defense bonuses or attack bonuses or whatever.
Those are these are the perks that activate at a certain percentage, and you get the bar on the side that tells you what it's doing, right?
I don't think it's a certain percentage. I think it's tied to the move specifically, and when you do the move, you get that. I don't think it's tied to Kratos' luck.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to show. I'll have to show you because I forget what. I'm sure they're called something specific. But as far as the story is concerned, it continues to be really good. There was like you got to the Iron Woods.
Yes, I'm after that now.
Yeah, which is amazing.
It's very, very, very good. Very good.
The boss fight in the Iron Woods
cool.
Was incredibly cool.
It was neat. It was very neat. Very of course, emotional in the story for particular characters. Visually, very neat, although a little confusing as well.
You think so? It was. The way that the boss has a specific weakness, and it's kind of weird.
I wasn't... so the boss wasn't confusing. It is their size compared to other sizes of people that we have met.
I have an answer for you.
Okay. All right, then never mind.
Okay. Well, it's not I think it has to do with the way God of War is written.
Sure.
Because things are not consistent, but it's because God of War is not written to be like a coherent. It's a mythical fantasy land, right? So what does Jorgenmander eat? It's like, who knows? He's this giant snake.
Yeah. Crabs.
There's nothing. There's nothing in the world that he could eat, right? That would sustain him at all. But the point of the point of God of War is there's not going to be these diegetic answers to how everything works. Sometimes they unpack things. They talk about like how the world tree connects all the realms and stuff like that. But I think it's more about living in that fantasy and how when you tell the story, you kind of feel like you're telling a myth. Because the myths, when you hear like old myths like Gilgamesh or something like that, not everything makes sense. But it's because, there wasn't a team of writers in the writer room when some dude came up with Gilgamesh and they're like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Act 1. Like, that's not how it was written. So I think, so when it comes to like the different sizes of giants and the inconsistencies and stuff like that, I think it just comes down to like, it's not a story.
Artistic.
Yeah, it's a myth. It's not really a story that's worried about things that are super consistent or staying super consistent. But anyway, that boss fight was one of my favorite, maybe one of my favorite boss fights in the entire
game
between the previous game and this game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Especially the end of it, which I thought the end of it was pretty stunning. I couldn't take my eyes off of a specific thing.
Yes.
I was like, holy cow. We're obviously not going to spoil anything. I got to a point where Kratos is with a specific character and it's a lot of Kratos and this character talking. And I can't even explain how good some of the dialogue is in this game.
Yes.
And the performances. It's just, I thought Atreus was a little flat here and there in the beginning, but I got to a point where it's like, oh, well, maybe not anymore, because he was just phenomenal. The performances and the dialogue are it's just breathtaking. Like, to hear Kratos say some of the things he talks about, to hear the change in like his mood and his approach to things. he and another character are kindred spirits, and it's only now that they're sort of realizing this. I think beforehand they weren't really sure. There was distrust, and then at this point in the story, I think they've come to a point where they've realized, not that their stories are similar, but just that they're kindred spirits. They have somewhat similar backgrounds. There's a lot of pain in both of their lives. And when they're having a conversation about something and Mimir's there and he interjects, it's just good. I mean,
and that's a big highlight of the game so far for me, is the focus on the supporting characters compared to the main characters, which I'm definitely happy that we're still getting lots of Kratos, and particularly Atreus, getting a lot more of them with the second game. But Brock, Sindri, and several other characters who were unexpected are getting a lot of spotlight, and it's really wonderful to see. And once again, it comes back to their performances, voice acting, facial, screen, motion capture, all that stuff. It is frankly stunning. And I mean, already this is something that I thought about today when playing. It was just like, man, I said that, I don't know when it was one of our podcasts earlier this year, but I think we were talking about like perfect games. And I think I said, I'd probably say 2018 was like close to perfect as far as the game goes. And this one, I'm just kind of like, I'm already enjoying this more than 2018. So what does that tell me? But I have to finish it before I truly make a decision on that. But yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you on the preferences as far as like what we decide a game of the year is, or even if one is better than the other. And of course, the conversation is going to be these two, God of War and Elden Ring. There's no doubt about that. But there are definitely God of War is my favorite only due to the fact that its story isn't obtuse as Elden Ring.
Sure,
but I understand that Elden Ring is not that. That's not its purpose.
Yep.
But it is something that grabs me when it comes to playing my games. So,
like when I played Elden Ring, I didn't pay attention to a lot of stuff because I knew I was going to have to work to understand the story. And I just don't care. Mm-hmm. And there are some things where I do care. I'll watch Twin Peaks, and sure, I'm down to figure out what the hell's going on with Twin Peaks and all the meta commentary on TV shows and shit like that. Like, sure, yeah, serve it up, David Lynch. Yeah, I'm down, but sometimes I'm just not. And with Elden Ring, I was just kind of like, whatever, I'm going to play through the game. I'm going to have a character that calls me a name, and Maiden, I don't know, whatever. Give me a sword, please. It's just like, I didn't care. But that's a preference thing. I don't think like the way God of War tells its story is objectively better than the way Elden Ring does. Mm. And I think that's all you got to say about it. I was going to, when it comes to performances, I want to highlight one character, one actress who plays, I forget her name, who plays
Agrabota?
Agrabota is very good. Agrabota is phenomenal. No, she's a character that's in the other game, Freya. I love how she delivers some of her lines, because there is, and this was true in the first game as well, but there's like it's a little hammy sometimes.
Okay.
Like but she's also like a queen. So it's she's talking to subjects every now and then.
Okay.
And I don't think that's like she's looking down upon people.
Right.
I think there's just I don't know. I just love Freya as a character. And there's this natural, like, connected Mother Earth type persona that she inhabits, and the way that she delivers her lines connect with that, and that's why it's so good in Ragnarok when you see the way that she is now. It's just, oh my god, it's such a 180, and it's such a phenomenal job. But as you go further into the game and you see more of the story there, it's just like every character gets their turn. There are Freya moments, there are Atreus moments, there are Kratos moments. Mm-hmm. There's a moment with a couple other characters, and it's almost like you're watching episodes of a TV show. Because when you watch a TV show, and there'll be you watch Star Trek, and this is a Data episode. Okay, this is a Worf episode. And and each character kind of gets like a focus, and that's what it kind of feels like in God of War. Kratos is there, but it's like the quest or your objective has to do with some other character. And so it's like they are the focus of the story for an hour or so.
Yeah.
And it is so rich, some of the storytelling. I just can't get over it. And all I can think about is getting back to playing it.
Yeah, there was a halfway point on Ironwood when it seemed like it was the end, and because of the dialogue, the way the dialogue was written, it was like, hey, we're going to do this, and then you can, whatever.
Yes.
And then when you get there, it's like, oh no, this is going to last for a lot longer than I thought, which was perfectly fine. And of course, now I'm out of that. I'm into the next arc, so to speak. So shut up.
I sent you guys a text. And there is a huge moment. I'll say, okay, not even a minor spoiler. There is an unexpected appearance of an enemy type. I don't know if you got there yet.
I don't think so.
No? Okay, you know what I was talking about. But I sent you guys that text of like that famous gif of the guy with the yes shirt with his glasses all ajar at the wrestling match, and he's like completely terrified, because he's like watching what's going on. Like through Ironwood, and then because that happens just a few minutes after Ironwood, so you're not very far.
Okay.
But like just the boss fight at Ironwood, leaving Ironwood, and then what happens immediately after that.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Is an hour, 2 hour sequence where it's just like there are so many strong emotional moments. It's almost too much to handle, but it's all so well written. It was like one of the best like hour and a half long sequences I've ever done in a game, and you're 4 hours in.
Yeah.
This isn't like the ending, Anyway, is there anything else you want to say about Ragnarok?
No.
Okay, I
haven't played a ton, so since the last time. So
sure. Okay. All right, let's hit the ad. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10, and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. All right, so The Verge had a really long interview with Phil Spencer. We're going to dig into it here. I apologize if I pronounce this incorrectly. The host of the Decoder podcast, Nilay Patel. Wide-ranging interview with Phil Spencer, who is the CEO of, I don't know what the official name, CEO of Xbox.
Xbox.
Thank you. But I don't know if it's like a Microsoft Xbox CEO. I don't know what his official title is, but he's CEO of Xbox Gaming.
Xbox.
Thank you. Just keep giving me Phil Spencer's as we go through. Again, Spencer.
Xbox.
Okay, now no more. That's
it says on Wikipedia, it says Phil Spencer, parentheses, business executive.
Oh, so he's a business executive.
Good.
He's a very important businessman. Phil Spencer, businessman.
He's the CEO of Microsoft Gaming.
Microsoft Gaming. There you go. Okay. He again indicated Microsoft has no plans to take Call of Duty away from Sony. When talking about delaying Starfield and Redfall, he admitted Xbox had shipped some games too early. There was no follow-up question about which games. The game that came to my mind was Halo Infinite.
He did speak about.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, I completely missed it.
There was a quote he had about.
I
saw
completely
it,
missed it then. Okay.
Just keep going.
You looked that up. But there were two quotes I wanted to discuss. They're a little lengthy, so bear with me here. But they're meaty, so I'm going to read through them. When discussing subscription models, Spencer said, quote, "We don't have this vision of everybody paying us $15 a month. We think the subscription is an interesting business model for certain kinds of games and for certain customers. I really see it as diversifying how people build their library of games. I think people buying and owning their games will be an important part of the business for years and years to come. Free-to-play will be a significant, probably majority of the business for a decade plus. Subscription will augment that. Having our customers choose the way they decide to play and how they play is really fundamental going back to how we make decisions," end quote. On Microsoft getting into mobile gaming, he said, quote, "In terms of the Activision opportunity," meaning the Activision Blizzard acquisition, it definitely starts with a view that people want to play games on every device that they have. In a funny way, the smallest screen that we play on is actually the biggest screen when you think about the install base in a phone. That's just a place where if we don't gain relevancy as a gaming brand, over time the business will become untenable. We're not alone in seeing this. This is true for any of us. If you're not able to find customers on phones or on any screen that somebody wants to play, then you really are going to get segmented to a niche part of gaming, or running a global business will become very challenging, end quote. Okay, there's a lot to break down there. The interview was wide-ranging. These are just 2 quotes that I wanted to pull out about the subscription model, the platform agnostic approach that Microsoft has, and then this thing about mobile gaming, which are 2 stories that we're going to talk about today are somewhat intertwined, because the next story is about the Epic lawsuit with Google and Apple about their relative or respective Play stores. But yeah, so what do we see in these quotes? What's something that stands out to us?
I see a hint of truth with Spencer talking about the free-to-play market and how that will be a majority of the business. That is something that we're kind of slightly seeing. Every major studio now essentially has a free-to-play game that utilizes free-to-play aspects. Of course, Activision with Call of Duty. We have Blizzard with Overwatch. I think, Rainbow Six isn't free-to-play, but it's cheap enough a lot of times that after you buy it, you have that model.
Yeah, sure.
And then I believe there are a couple others. Halo Infinite, if you want to count that or whatnot. Yeah. But of course, that is something that since everybody has a phone and everybody has the ability to go to that store, simply click install, start playing something and encounter those things. It's something that people are getting used to more and more, especially as younger generations grow up in that environment. And it is something that I'm not going to say they necessarily prefer. It's just something they've grown with.
Yeah.
So they don't, experience everything else. And not that they couldn't, we do still have indie games and of course Sony and Nintendo who want to keep creating actual single player paid products. But I think that's a big thing that the quiet part was said out loud. And I don't know how many people will listen to it.
When you say the quiet part, what do you mean?
Because free to play is something that's just happening, but nobody in the big 3 has like specifically come out to be this is what it's gonna be. And he's Phil Spencer is already, saying like, hey, that's what it's gonna be. That's what we see.
Yeah.
So.
I have zero patience for video game executives. I dislike pretty much all of them, but the one dude I have a bit of a soft spot for is Spencer, because I think Xbox really does believe I think Tim Sweeney and Epic, I think Tim Sweeney believes in the idealistic venture of what Epic's doing. But I also think Epic does like skeevy thing. I mean, and every company does skeevy things. But Epic's entire thing is I want this 11-year-old to buy a duck suit on his phone, and I want to get, a cut of that cash, not for it to go to Apple. That's the entire basis behind the Epic suit. Whereas opposed to Xbox, it's this platform agnostic approach, and I do think when we talk about like the ideals of sort of how they want to see the future of gaming, I think Xbox is the one that really does, or at least Phil Spencer and what he says is sort of the best and most well-rounded and most candid person that gives quotes and talks about these things. And Xbox and they follow up with the things that they do, right? With Game Pass and stuff like that. I do think it's interesting that, okay, he says that the business would become untenable. I think that's really interesting because it's like, really? Like if you don't break into mobile, Microsoft couldn't keep up a gaming business. It would become untenable.
Right.
There was a lot there. I took this quote out of a larger quote, so I don't think I'm missing anything, but I thought that was interesting. because mobile gaming is almost a different paradigm than sort of traditional gaming,
Mm-hmm.
because the economic model shifts. Because so much of it, like mobile never got its chance to be a place where you bought a game and you played it. From the get-go, it was people always have their phones on them, so they're tethered to it indefinitely. So that means retention is going to be easier because you don't have to go. You got to go to your PC, you got to go to your consoles. Your phone's going to be with you, right? So the retention is going to be easier. And from the get-go, it was okay. So how do we monetize that? I think the paradigm is sort of different. Like when we talk about gaming, it's just a different, maybe not necessarily a different business model, but a different paradigm. And then when you tell me that the business is going to be untenable, I find that almost hard to believe, because it's like you're Microsoft and
Yeah.
you're one of the biggest companies in the world. You've got Windows, you've got all this stuff. Is it really going to be untenable?
I think that's the quote that makes Phil Spencer get that like woe is me type thing coming in, because there are, once again, looking at the entire gaming stratosphere of who makes games and who's big and who isn't, there are a lot of people who don't have games on cell phones or don't focus on releasing games on cell phones, and they're doing just fine. I think probably one of the biggest I could think of right now is Embracer Group. Anything Embracer Group does.
Do they not have any mobile?
I don't think they do. I don't think they have any solely like huge focused mobile games.
Oh yeah, and they shut down Square Enix Montreal, which was their mobile developer. Yeah,
right, and another one. But yeah, and I mean, Embracer Group's not like gigantic, but knowing what they have at the moment, I do think that they're pretty big.
Sure.
I don't think 2K has.
Well, remember they bought Zynga.
They did. That's right. That's right.
So they spent a bunch of money.
That's a technicality, mister. No.
But
no, you're right,
you are correct that it's not in-house. They didn't have one, so their solution was to throw a bunch of money at a puppy. And say,
and so there you go. There's your answer. Just acquire somebody.
Sure.
Who does that? Like they've thrown enough money around in the last 2 years to show us that they can.
This is true. And that would be the Activision Blizzard acquisition, because you get Activision Blizzard, you get King, you get Candy Crush, and there's a bunch of people that play Candy Crush and they love spending money on it, and so that's the extent of the substance.
That's probably one of the biggest things that people are overlooking when it comes to this Activision Blizzard merger.
Is the mobile angle.
Yeah,
and that would be one of the whole points of the entire thing. Maybe it's something that we should have mentioned more of as well. I don't know. But anyway, just the idea that their business would become untenable, I find that interesting. And I also think it's worth, I don't know. I'd love to one day, next week when he's on the show, sit down and be like, okay, you said it's untenable, but like, is it really?
Right.
And is it? Because when I look, when the paradigm, when I think gaming, I think like console games. I think games you buy that you play. But there is overlap between like the mobile economy and what we consider traditional gaming. But the mobile space there is no like premium, like there is not a God of War in the mobile space. That does not exist. Right. It is all just microtransactions. That's the entire thing. So that economy is so different that it's like, I don't know, video games existed before mobile games. Mm-hmm. Now mobile games are here. They're making a ton of money. So it doesn't make sense that all of a sudden that the business of video games can't survive because mobile gaming has picked up in the past 15 years. Mm. And we've unlocked this human phenomenon of people buying stuff on their phones. I don't know. I find that quote really interesting. Speaking of woe is me, I didn't write this with either of the quotes, but Microsoft and Phil Spencer talked about this, and this is one thing where I kind of side-eye Phil Spencer a lot. I'm like, come on, bro. But Microsoft's position in the acquisition is, hey, we are third in this race, right? Yeah. Sony's ahead of us. Look how many PS4s they sold. we sold like a dozen Xbox Ones and 6 of those people still don't know how to work the UI. Like, that's their argument. And then they say, look at Nintendo, every 5 seconds, another
20 people buy a Switch.
Every time I clap my hands, 20 people buy a Nintendo Switch. Like, it's just nonstop, right? So Microsoft's argument is we're in third place. So if we get Activision Blizzard, it's not like we're going to be dominant. This is what we have to do to stay afloat because we're in third place. But of course, I think that's a little disingenuous because neither Nintendo or Sony has Windows, and they also aren't Microsoft, which is one of the biggest companies in the world. So it's like, yeah, you're third place, but you're in third. It's like you're astronomically huge in third place, you know. So
just a small $1.8 trillion in third place.
So I think so. I don't buy that argument. I think it's a little bit of political gamesmanship, and that's a little. I do give Phil Spencer a little side eye. You know, because like, come on, that's just the corporate line. Because if it were that simple, regulators wouldn't really be looking at this seriously. Right. If it were as simple as, yeah, Microsoft sure needs some help, regulators wouldn't be looking at this the way that they are. Yeah, and then I guess I already talked about that first quote. I still believe what Stadia did wrong is that they kicked in the door and said, streaming is the future. Fuck downloads. And get your name first. I'm Phil Harrison. I approve of this message. and they tanked, right? And Xbox's approach is completely different. And it's play where you want. We're going to give options. We believe in an ecosystem. And I think people are much more open to that than to be shown a door and said, this is the only door you can go through. Microsoft, it's like, there's all these doors. And I think that's a much better way of handling the future of video games. Anyway, are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Real quick though, just on the bit of to circle back to mobile gaming.
Oh, we're circling back.
Yes.
Yeah, we're a serious podcast.
Yeah. So again, Microsoft being or Xbox being a subsidiary of Microsoft, net worth of $1.8 trillion. Paradox Interactive has 4 mobile games. One of them is just a mobile port of Prison Architect.
Yeah.
And they're doing just fine.
Yeah. And
you don't need mobile games to succeed.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what I'm curious about is like, do you really need it to succeed, or do you need it to succeed on a level that Tencent is succeeding? Because if that's the case,
how do they define succeeding? That's the question.
Yeah. And so I don't know, like if you I think it's a dubious argument. There, we'll put it to rest. We'll put it to rest like that.
Okay, fair.
Richard,
Epic says that Google paid Activision and Riot not to compete with what? We'll find out.
Hey, whoa.
First reported by Bloomberg's Cecilia. My God, I was saying her name earlier like 4 times, and of course when it comes time to say it, and fuck it up. According to a court filing from Epic, in January 2020, Google agreed to pay Activision $360 million over 3 years after Epic discussed launching its own app store. Activision agreed to launch its games on the Google Play Store before they debuted on other app stores. And in March 2020, Google reached a similar agreement for Tencent for $30 million. The filing says, quote, Google understood that its agreement with ABK effectively ensured that ABK would abandon its plans to launch a competing app store, and Google intended this result, end quote. In an email to Bloomberg, a Google spokesperson said Epic mischaracterized the deal, saying it was actually a program designed to give incentives to developers to give early access to Google Play consumers for new content. Bloomberg also points out that, as revealed as part of the Activision Blizzard merger, Microsoft plans to launch its own app store, which will also be on mobile devices.
So there's a lot of crossover here. We already discussed Microsoft's trying to nudge their way into the mobile market, and that's part of the Activision Blizzard King purchase. The thing that I think that brought to my mind was like how much side to bring up this verb again, which I'm just apparently using to death, side-eyeing. The amount of side-eyeing that Steam is doing now, that Valve's doing. Because like over the past decade, every publisher almost every major publisher tried to do their own launcher.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Bethesda did. Ubisoft did.
Ubisoft, yeah.
EA did. I'm sure there's like 2 or 3 that I'm forgetting. So there's a couple people that tried.
Epic.
Yeah, but the difference here is that all those failed, and they eventually folded back into Steam, with the exception of Epic. Now Epic has Fortnite, so that's going to be the difference.
And free games.
And free games. So you got a couple different, and a ton of cash.
Yeah.
More cash than I guess the rest of those publishers had. But I don't know. It makes me wonder. One, how many of these arguments about breaking into the mobile space and Google or Apple's duopoly, how much of that can apply to Valve's holding on the PC marketplace? Because Valve's holding on the PC marketplace is almost unrivaled, except for Epic. But even then, it's like, it's nowhere near the story it was a couple years ago. And Epic just is kind of existing now, and I'm not sure too many people care about it. And so many games have come back to Steam. Microsoft games, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is coming back.
Games, yeah.
So, and Diablo 4 may come to... Modern Warfare came back to Steam.
Yeah.
That was the other one. That was the Blizzard launcher. There was another one.
Oh, Battle.net, yeah.
Yeah, Battle.net. Modern Warfare came back to Steam. And if Modern Warfare comes back to Steam, you would think Diablo 4 would come to Steam. So Epic carved out their own space in the PC marketplace, but they didn't take anything away from Steam. If anything, Steam just happened to gain new ground because all these companies were like, well, we can't do this on our own. So they did that. But I guess the PC space isn't as lucrative as the mobile space, so companies aren't going to worry about it as much. Perhaps.
Yeah. I don't know. It is also because you can look at Steam, and I think Epic is looking at Steam kind of being like, you guys are creating a monopoly. Or at least that's what it seems from them trying to create the Epic launcher and whatnot. But it is kind of, I think about all of these launchers that have come out, and they've all folded just because they don't do it as well as Steam.
Sure.
And I don't think Steam particularly is trying to make a monopoly, because they would have shut down those places. It's just they're doing it better than everyone else, and people just prefer to go with them. But I think Epic views that a different way, just like they view all of these companies having their own app stores on the mobile space, and not getting the cuts that they want towards them. And so I think that's where that comes from.
And it comes down to, I don't think I'm being too cynical here. It comes down to microtransactions.
Yes, it does.
I think the reason that there isn't more, and it's not specifically, it's not even just money. It's specifically microtransactions. It comes down to little Timmy wants to buy a duck costume. I'm assuming a duck costume exists in Fortnite.
Hold on. Let's start just calling microtransaction purchases.
Yeah, you're right.
When you buy a candy bar for 99 cents at the store, is that a fucking no? It's a purchase.
No,
99 cent 500 crystal pack. That's a purchase, baby. That's not a microtransaction.
So additional purchases. I don't know. We need to make up another word for it. But anyway, that's what this comes down to. Money laundering. But the point is that this isn't like the dynamics between the PC storefront battle and the mobile storefront battle are different, because that we talked about it a couple minutes ago. The economics are different. On the PC space, Epic wants to be able to sell God of War and compete with Steam, right? On the mobile space, Epic doesn't give a shit about selling games. It's all about the microtransactions and getting a cut from those microtransactions, because that's such a huge part of so many companies' returns now, right? And that's why I think people this doesn't drive up the same kind of passion and stuff like that as the PC storefronts did. Also because it meant people had to do something different, which nobody ever likes. But yeah, anyway, a lot of overlap. I've said my piece. Are you ready for tidbits?
Let's go.
Let's do tidbits. A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is The Tidbits.
Yuji Naka, the co-creator of I'm hyper tonight, man.
No, you're fine. No, I laughed because it was like as soon as you said Yuji Naka, it was like, yep.
Oh yeah. I expected that to be a story, but no, I mean, there's not much to go on.
Yeah,
Anyways, Yuji Naka, the co-creator of Sonic the Hedgehog, has been arrested in Japan. In January of 2020, Yuji Naka was an employee with Square Enix and was helping to develop Dragon Quest Tact, which was a cell phone tactical game based off Dragon Quest. He was helping to develop that, and the main developer on the game was a studio named Aiming. Aiming. Well, Naka apparently purchased about 10,000 shares of the studio for around 2.8 million yen before the title was even announced, assuming to reap the benefits of higher stock prices. Of course, he was arrested for that. Taisuke Sasaki, another Square Enix employee, and acquaintance Fumiaki Suzuki were also arrested, along with Naka, for suspected insider trading.
You could say Yuji Naka tried to pull a fast one because of Sonic.
Yeah.
What's the next tidbit?
It would be awesome if we could like do buttons on the fly, because it'd do Sonic's like, you're too slow or something like that. I don't know if that'd be much funnier, but anyways. Yeah, man, how the mighty have fallen. Like, because he had Balan Wonderworld. Well, not that he didn't. I'm not going to get into it. It's because I'm going to just spout out trivia, and I'm not doing this. Not tonight. Embracer Group is making a lot of moves. Embracer Group has had a financial report come out last week with a good amount of information, including a mystery 6-year deal with several industry partners involving multiple large games, a Dead Island 2 delay, Volition being moved into Gearbox, absorbed by them, and an internal review underway that may lead off to spin-off companies. Star Trek Online, Borderlands 3, Neverwinter, and Valheim were named as revenue drivers. Valheim, of course, was extremely huge for the company, which noted that the game had reached 10 million in sales and continued its continued
I didn't even know they
success.
owned Valheim.
Yeah.
Have they owned it since it released, or did they acquire it?
No clue. No.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know they owned them either, but
yeah.
Embracer
Group is interesting because they're, I don't know, thus far they seem to be like the Valve publisher.
Sure.
You're scared of how powerful they are, but they're kind of saying and doing the things you want companies to kind of say and do. Not, obviously not everything Valve does is great. We talked about Valve extensively last week, but so there's that like cautious optimism. But even with that, I don't like that companies are that big and have that many things under their umbrella.
Yeah, it is very funny because it's kind of, I keep visualizing when we compare them or talk about how big they are. And like Valheim is huge, of course, like we talked about, but I kind of envision this like grand party, and everybody there is a representation of like all the like studios. It's just like Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony are like chatting with each other, and like Xbox or Nintendo kind of goes, "What's he doing over there?" And then like Embracer Group is just like gathering everybody in the corner, like, "Hey, yeah, right, yeah." No, they're getting the spotlight. So
when you have place cards at a table, it's like Nintendo, nicely neat place, PlayStation, couple place cards, Microsoft, couple place cards. You look at Embracer Group, it's like there's like too many chairs. There's like chairs positioned by other chairs.
Yeah,
that's very true. What's the next tidbit?
Bayonetta 4 has been confirmed by Platinum Studios. This is a short one, but Bayonetta creator Hideki Kamiya went on to Twitter to talk about loads of Bayonetta information, including the reveal that Bayonetta 4 is in conceptual stages. Hideki Kamiya said, quote, "I didn't think it was unexpected at all, but it seems that the ending of Bayonetta 3 wasn't conveyed correctly to everyone. So I think Bayonetta 4 will be an unexpected development for everyone. After all, when Bayonetta 4 comes out, I'm sure there will be people who say, you added this game as an afterthought, so I'll just say it now." End quote.
Okay. Interesting that we're talking about Bayonetta.
I was gonna say,
purely away from any of the other
big question in everyone's mind.
Yeah.
Will Helena Taylor be reprising her role?
I do like that though, because there are so many people who do that. God of War. I mean, God of War we talked about. God of War Ascension was like one of those games that was released after the trilogy ended. So it was just like, oh, this is an afterthought because it took place like it was like a prequel.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so it's just like you just did that as an after thing. Like you had no idea that you were going to put this there, because it's a good game, but it's also you play it and you're like, why'd you do this?
Oh, okay.
It has no real bearing on anything. So yeah, so it's great that he was like, we are making it. You guys didn't get the ending, so like,
that's funny. Have you gotten to the end of Bayonetta 3?
Gosh, no. I mean, I played it like 2 days before God of War came out, or like I started it like 2 or 3 days before God of War came out. So
yeah.
I will go back to finish it because I do enjoy the series, and I mean that goes with so many other games I had to finish this year that I've played. So.
Of course. Okay. Is that it for Tidbits?
That's it for Tidbits.
That's
yes,
it for Tidbits. Okay.
For me, at least. I don't know.
Connor, do you have a Connor bit?
There's rumors going around that Nintendo's giving out refunds for Scarlet and Violet.
What?
Rare.
Where are these rumors?
They're
out there.
That's a scary place.
Mostly on Reddit.
Mostly on Reddit. That's an extremely scary place.
Yes, but with
Might be the only one we have left.
but with the deluge of glitches and bugs that people are posting online, it wouldn't be surprising if a few hadn't gotten through with a refund.
I don't know. Something tells me like, I don't know. Getting a refund from Nintendo, in my mind, has to be like the most difficult thing.
Absolutely.
I think you have a better chance of like robbing Fort Knox than getting a refund from Nintendo.
I hear PlayStation's tough too. PlayStation is really tough.
PlayStation, and although even PlayStation has I don't know if Nintendo does, but PlayStation has like a customer service like portal you can go through to request a refund. But anyway, sorry, just the way that Nintendo handles things.
No, it's true.
Even if a game just doesn't, even if the EXE isn't included with the game, like, which I don't even know if Nintendo, if that it's not Windows, so I don't know. Anyway, their version of an EXE, it like they still be like, sorry, no refunds. Anyway, follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. We'll see you next week.
Bye bye.